All right, we're on top of Beis Lamed Ches. Spoke yesterday about the moyach element, and now this is going to come to even greater light. Where in the moyach there is the essence of the chokhmah, whereas when there is the seichel, there is only the ruchnis of the chokhmah, as we shall see. Let's first try as best as we can identify what is meant by seichel. Again, because of the usurping of the chokhmah chitzenis, we may lose track of what is seichel. Even though seichel comes in an organized manner, where one thing brings to the other, and it's all structured, you can even call it in the sense that one thing proves the other. But that is only the chitzonius of the seichel. The real seichel element is, as we always say, it makes sense. I could recognize, in the seichel, recognize the truth of whatever it is you've come to understand. Say, for example, lo signoiv. So the chitzonius, as we said many times, there are signoiv because of consequences. If you are going to be violating somebody else's property, then your property will be violated, and therefore it is violated. And therefore there was going to be a disarray. You would rather not violate his property so that your property doesn't get violated. But you don't necessarily sense that it's wrong to violate his property. It's like the common expression, the worst thing of crime is being caught. Is that it is? Is that human value of crime? They tell the story of the Chafetz Chaim. Okay, I'm allowed to tell a story of Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim was a very big Yerushalayim, and somebody once delivered a piece of mail, a letter to him from a different city, and delivered to him a piece of mail. Somebody wanted to send a letter, so instead of putting it in the mailbox, he sent it to a shliach. The shliach was going to, and he delivered to him. The opposite way. The Chafetz Chaim had to send a letter, so somebody took the letter to deliver it. Chafetz Chaim went and he took a stamp and he tore it off. point is, okay, it's not a question of a herod. The point is, Seichel recognizes the truth of the right way of behavior. It's not all based on. It's not all the consequence based on consequence. This means Seichel. Thus, we can readily, if we think a little bit further, we can readily understand that Seichel is a ruchnische inyan from the neshama. The goof does not. The goof only knows consequence at best. If it gets hit, it hurts. This is a neshama inyan, but it's a neshama inyan on this limited level of seichel that you can identify things, not like oineg and rotzen, which is clearly in neshama inyan. This is something which is mislabish in a certain form in a certain circumstance, but it's still in neshama inyan. This is seichel. Therefore, when you say there is hashpos, haseichel, hashpos ruchnis means that it's mashpia seichel. It gives a certain inspiration that you should understand the inyan. That's in the haseichel. Okay. So now we are going to discuss this in the difference. There's a difference between hashpos, atipa meha moyach. The moyach is a physical part of the body, but the moyach is that physical part of the body which is so extremely sensitive to the neshama, to the ruchnis, that it actually represents the life center of the human being. It senses not the messages of the neshama, but the presence of the neshama itself. That's the moyach. This is why it is the seat of the chokhmah and so forth. Okay, so now we continue on the top line of Beis Lamed Ches. We can see sheyesh hefresh godel, that there is a great difference Beis hamshpoes hanal, between these two hashpoes. The hashpoes haseichel, hashpoes ruchnis, and hashpoes come from the moyach, which is the tipo, which is a gashmi. Namely, what is the difference? Behu, which is shehashpoes haseichel, but the hashpoes of the seichel, and again we have to bear in mind the seichel as we have identified. Im heyois hashpoas oy ruchni, although that this is a hashpoa of oy ruchni, of spiritual light. As I pointed out, seichel is not just a technical aspect, but it is an oyer that illuminates a certain idea. Yet still, hariyesh gvul hashpa osoi. There is a gvul, there is a limit to the hashpa. The harei, for, as we can see, b'chol dvar seichel v'chochma, in any aspect, in any principle of seichel and chochma, shemischakein bei, in which one delves into and finds all the various pathways of the seichel, the various revelations and alternate ways of looking at it, mischakein bei. No matter what that vasechel is, yesh lo zeh hagbola, there is a limit. Kama yochel lehischakim beinyan zeh, how much one can be mischakim, can find wisdom Be'inyan zeh, in this particular inyan. This expression itself tells you that when you say about seichel, seichel has a content. Seichel does not speak of a neutral. There's no concept in seichel that does not have a particular message. What this is about. Therefore, the inyan that he is mischakim, the base inyan that he is mischakim in, there is a limit how much he can be mischakim. Because there is a general point that he is elaborating on. Va'afilu chocham godel, even a great chocham, sheyaskil harbe be'oimek ha'inyan, who can conceptualize and comprehend a lot be'oimek ha'inyan, in the depth of this inyan. Yet still, yesh b'zeh hagbola, there is a limit, the atpeisove v'suloi. Atpeisove, this is how far you can come with seichel. V'suloi, and you cannot go any further with seichel. Why can you not go further with the seichel? The whole, and the principle in this is, She'ein inyan hahaskolo noisei yoiser, that this haskolo does not really contain anymore. You already exhausted, so to speak, what there is in this seichel, and it's not noisei anymore. We're not familiar with these concepts, and we're not going to get familiar, suddenly, but just want to explain in general what we are talking about. I mentioned before the inyan for loy signoi. Now, loy signoi is a principle on a human level. And again, I said this is a seichel, a human seichel, that compels loy signoi. This is not just because of consequences and all of the ramifications. The reality of it itself. Then there is a inyan of a loy signoi, the way it is in the Aseres HaDibros. The inyan for loy signoi of the Aseres HaDibros is not a seichel inyan. It's not the seichel of loy signoi. This is saying that loy signoi is on par with loy chavai lekech. You're violating the godly truth in the world. This is not part of the seichel of loy signoi. Loy signoi per se, as a seichel, has a limit. You can elaborate on this, on the principles of it and so forth, and dig in deeper and deeper how significant it is, but still it is within the context of a worldly context. Which means apeisav. If you go beyond that, you're going out of the seichel of the city.
It's like the Rambam writes that the person should delve into the mitzvahs to try to find the reason for the mitzvahs. In other words, to bring out the seichel aspect of it.
Yeah. One should try to understand this, the mitzvah according, but then human capacity. Human capacity. Mitzvahs are not human. And this is what they say, in Haskalah noise yeser. The Haskalah does not contain anymore. You exhausted what this seichel is. The whole principle of noise signet has a limit. The principle of noise signet exists within a context. And if you exhausted the context, you've explained the whole thing. When you go outside the context, you go to the union that this is the Meibash's world and you're violating that's not part of the seichel.
But there's godly seichel also, right?
What?
There's not seichel is not only on human level, right? There would be a godly seichel as well.
Yes, but it's not the seichel based on the same principles at all. V'chein ma sheyochel liyes histafus ha-seichel. And likewise, ma sheyochel liyes histafus. The fact that there is a possibility there could be histafus ha-seichel. Histafus means secondary, branching off of the seichel, where the seichel branches off and encompasses other areas. The who, which is Mashiv seichel zeh, where from one seichel boyim li'inyan acher, one can come to a different principle, hamistaif mizeh, that results and is a branch off from this seichel. Hakoil hu bivchinas hakbol. All of it, even the histafus, even the broadening out in different areas of this seichel has a hakbol. For example, the Mishnah says that Chocham einoi nichnas b'toich divrei chaveirei. Mishnah said there are 7 things, Shiva dvorim b'Chocham. And a Chocham einoi nichnas b'divrei chaveirei doesn't mix in, just jump in the middle of somebody else's talk. That's whatever that means. Now, there is clearly a relationship between the principle Ayin nichnas b'divrei chaveirei and the inyan lo signev. It's a similar realm and a similar principle, and totally different realms. And that branching off can be also very, very broad. Like when somebody quotes a seichel without mentioning where he got it from, then it's also an information. What is it called in the literary world?
Misappropriation?
No.
Plagiarism.
Huh? Plagiarism. There are many ramifications from in this principle. So the point is that, as Rambam says, including the ramifications, there is Agbola, because there is a limited, definitive principle that's involved. As much as you can elaborate on it and point the various areas and the various nuances that are involved, there's a limit. Hakoyle b'finas Hagbala. It is all in the Hagbala manner. Ubehechrech. It is imperative that there be therein a Hagbala, a limit. One should contain his discussion within context, v'hainu, which means that all the ramifications that he brings in should be only such inyonim that relate to this seichel. V'im lo yagbil es atzmei bozeh, and if he should fail to limit himself in this, which means he does not understand the clear demarcations of the seichel, and he jumps off in all kinds of different directions, Yelech b'derech hakelosim, then he will go in a crooked path. Gam beguf etzem haseichel. If he should develop ramifications of the seichel that are not part and parcel of the seichel, then this will divert him. It will pervert his seichel. Even beguf etzem haseichel, it will pervert his understanding of the seichel itself. Because from these inyonim hamistafim, from these additional ramifications that come from the seichel, mizbaer guf haseichel b'yeser. The etzem, the guf haseichel, the body of the seichel becomes more and more clear. V'kasher ho'inyonim elam shayochim, but when the inyonim that he's bringing into this, elam shayochim be'emes el haseichel, do not truly relate to the seichel. Harei, so then the result is mashe mizbae mizeh ho'inyan hasichli hazeh, that clarity that he gets from all the ramifications, as far as this particular seichel is concerned, ein emes. It's not really bringing out a true perspective, a true understanding of the seichel. Al kain, and therefore behechrech, it is imperative sheyiyeh bozeh hagbala, that there must be a hagbala, a boundary set as to what is included in the seichel and what is not included in the seichel. As we said before, that the principle of a seichel is that it actually has a certain content, and that content has what it includes and what is excluded, what is outside. The principle of a content, like we said before, lo signal. One can go, as I said before, one can go and say, oh, this signal is actually part of the Aseret HaDibros, and it actually is a reflection of lo chavai lekecha, which is even higher than Bereishis Bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. All this is true, but it's not part of the seichel. what is part of the seichel, what is not part of the seichel. So I take an analogy, a moshel from what we discussed many times. You have a home, and a home is a demarcation area that demarcates a certain area, taking a general area, and it demarcates that to be specifically this home. Now, if, as we always point out, if you should really analyze this area, you would find that this area is really part of the general area. And you can find in it depth and significance that is on par with the general area. Yet, we point out that there is significance in the demarcation. As we point out the other day, something which comes very clear to everyone, that if somebody would have his personal dwelling in the Empire State Building, he couldn't consider this a personal dwelling. The space is there, but it has a personal dwelling. So the personal dwelling is taking an area from the general resource of areas, but it gives us a definitive meaning, and this definitive meaning has meaning in and of itself. You don't have to go back and say, where is it coming from, and why come it's like that? That is outside of that particular seichel. Although, yes, there are many different sources and so forth, but it is important to understand everything as seichel, that you understand the seichel within its own parameters. And there's a truth to these parameters within that context. Which means, in a word, that every seichel has a truth of its own. It represents a truth of its own. Even though there's a broader truth from which it comes. But it has, so to speak, to say that his Stalsons to come down to this particular truth.
It comes down to this particular truth, and for the sake of seichel, it seems like there's value in keeping it in that context, not connecting it back to how
every seichel has to be understood within its own value, its own truth, its own parameters. The fact that it goes further out, yes, it gives it substance, substantiates it, but the seichel is real right here.
It does substantiate it, but yet it's real right on the local level.
Right.
Because...
Right. Okay, this is the inyan ha-seichel. This is a real thing. Let me explain in very simple terms. We have a couple of minutes. We say that we have to have beetle. Beetle is Kabbalah soil. So now, this beetle, if it's understood within the parameters of beetle, it would mean that I'm disciplined. I get up on time. I go to sleep on time. Whatever I do it right, with the proper approach, with the proper definitions and perfection, and so forth. Then there is, if one expands and says, beetle, hey, what's the difference how I do things? I'm a nothing. That's taking beetle out of context.
That's taken out of context. Yeah, that actually undermines, not substantiates.
Why is it undermined? But it is beetle. Because there is value in this creation itself. This is a seichel. Seichel can only come through beetle, but there is hashpoah as a seichel, which comes from the truth of the nefesh that says this is how it should be. Coming back to the home element, like I said before, I went into it and lost the point which I wanted to bring out, which was very clear. In a home, there are two things. There is that this demarcates it from the outside. It's not outside, it's inside. The value of the inside is not only that it is not the outside. It has an internal value. All of its own. And it has to be understood within its own context, its own value.
In its own terms, even though it's sort of in a wider
Even though it's all
context.
based on the general value. But now it is within this demarcation, and there's significance of this demarcation is not only to keep animals out, but it has value for itself.
Is it true that sometimes the wider context really does give reality to the local context? Lo tignor. Do not steal. Substantiated really strongly by this is Hashem's world. Things are elevated.
But this is a different realm. We have the seichel means you have to be understood with in its own value, in its own context.
That's to say things can and should be understood in their own context.
Yes. This means understanding a seichel. This is the principle of pnimius. That you understand it in your level. Not on the broader level. In your narrow, limited level, you understand it. That's what it means.
We talk about or haseichel and the or relating back to the mar.
I'm sorry. Okay. We mentioned before, or we'll have to leave it for tomorrow.
Okay. No, I'm trying to understand. How does that staying within the context relate to what we talk about seichel as being an or that reflects back to, I guess, a broader or something?
Okay. So retain that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good day. You have to stay. I look and I say, have a couple of minutes, but I don't realize that a couple of minutes is just a couple of minutes.